Thank you, Chair. And just to start by welcoming you both to the committee, and thank you for making the time to appear here today. And more significantly, I suppose, thank you for the incredible work you're doing in relation to the Ukrainian and other refugee crises. I know you have a long history of supporting refugees and are an essential part of an infrastructure that helps relocate and support refugees more broadly. Your opening statement outlining the scale and comprehensive nature of your work in securing accommodation for refugees, I think gives us a sense of the complexities that are involved. I have a few questions. One of the questions I want to ask is, when we have a population who fled their homes and their lives and they're escaping violence, potentially or almost definitely experiencing some kind of trauma, all of that will put considerable pressure on those individuals, but then also on the host families who are sharing accommodation with people. So in the short and medium term, what types of social and psychological supports do you think will be needed to be made available for both refugees and for their host families? I'm also wondering, you referenced this incredible 33 million that has been fundraised, and I'm wondering, and presuming that that amount of money coming in is sort of dwindling as time goes on, because I suppose only so much people given all the different things. So is there a need then for additional supports in some other way? I'm wondering if there's anything else, what could government be doing now to support you more? Really important for us to know as a committee. And then finally, if there's time, I'm wondering what lessons we can learn in our kind of immediate response to Ukraine that we should, apply to other refugee emergencies. Thanks.
Okay. Well, the first one, just to in terms of the supports to hosts and the supports to refugees, I think they're both crucial. So the first one, from the host's point of view, we have an online training course which we will be running for the hosts. And it's not just ourselves, the Refugee Council and NASC, there's a number of us have designed it, and it is quite specific to the hosts in this situation. So that will be made available to people who are hosting. Equally, in terms of the refugees, I think this is a critical piece, because Garda vetting is one thing, but safeguarding to me is as important. And that means that we need to have in place a support for refugees who have moved out of hotels into accommodation, into our community. And you can, there's two types. There is obviously the psychosocial support, there's counselling support, but then there's also simply having a number, having a name, knowing that if there is a difficulty, that they can be actually contacted. And I think that is very important. And earlier today I was talking to some other NGOs and emphasising the fact that, because it's not just the Red Cross, we're all in this together, and we need to have that in place. And to me, that's one thing the department needs to focus on, ensuring that the refugees and the hosts have contact people that they can come back to if there is any issue. And there will be issues. There are always issues. Sometimes these arrangements, we know from the past, break down on either the host side or on the refugee side. And we need to be able to move on that quickly. And that's the point of the project I mentioned at the very start, in terms of the volunteers who have volunteered us. So our intent is to train those so that there would be more volunteers available if refugees need them. And I mean, I think that's the other lesson we've learned, is sometimes refugees say to us, actually, listen, thanks, we're fine. And I think that's important to be able to recognise that as well. Sorry, TD, your second question was lessons learned.
In terms of other emergencies, the immediacy of our response in this has been so amazing. But what lessons can we learn then in responding to other crises, of refugee crises?
I think what has been done here has been superb at this stage, in the sense that people have come in. I actually think the way that it has been structured, it took a little bit of time. That's fine, at the airports, at the ports, and it has become very well coordinated. I think the setting up of the hubs, the use of the emergency accommodation in terms of hotels, etc., all of that has actually, that's all gone very well. So I think the lesson learned is that you can actually do that if you're organised. So, and I think we need to learn lessons for the future in relation to that. That at the same time means that I know that hotels are going to be used shortly for other purposes, and I know refugees are being moved from one place to the next. All of that is difficult, and I think lessons learned from that need to be learned quickly, because refugees need to be communicated with, because they're already, the biggest issue for them is what they call progression. They have children, many have, not many, some have jobs, and they want to know where they're going to be, which is understandable. And when they're being moved like that, that is an issue, there's no doubt about it, and that issue is going to have to be dealt with.
The final middle question. Yeah.
Through the chair, if I might, I think one of the lessons that I noticed, and I'm a step further back from the front line than Liam, is it's imperative, I think, that the refugees themselves feel they have an ownership of what is happening, that they're not moved at short notice or to some place that is patently unsuitable for their needs and so on. And I think that there are a number of very interesting projects emerging in different parts of the country, which I think will prove to be templates. And I certainly recommend that communities who are engaged in, I suppose, capacity building is what we'd call it, throughout the country, would include the Ukrainian community and indeed the Syrian community and the Afghan community and so on. So as Liam said, that there is a real evidence of progression in what is happening.
The final one was around the amazing amount of donations received, and inquiring about whether that's dwindling and how you'll be fixed then in the coming short to medium term.
Well, I think in the short term, we've obviously distributed quite a bit so far. We intend to have distributed 14 million by the end of June. We have deliberately thought about holding back maybe 10 million, simply on the hope that there is a solution, a peace. Yeah. And at that stage then those monies can be used for enabling people's return, for livelihoods, for rebuilding, etc. So that is the plan. Monies are still coming in all of the time, and while I suppose we're not out there as forcefully for obvious reasons, we are still taking in quite an amount of money, and we're obviously allocating it back out again as quickly as we can. So there's where we're caught at times in a bit of a strange position. We want to move the money out, and at the same time we're just being careful so that at a later stage we will have monies to move at the appropriate time.
Thank you so much.